Welcome to the Survivor to Thriver show with your happiness expert, Samia Bano. Do you feel stuck, silent, and stressed? Is something hurting your heart and soul? Are you burning yourself out? If so, you are in the right place because this is the podcast people from all over the world join in to learn exactly how to stop suffering and start living with inner peace and joy. Let's get started. Hey, welcome back to the Survivor to Thriver show. For the last so many episodes, we have been talking about domestic violence awareness. Of course, this is a very, very important issue for us to address because healthy relationships are absolutely necessary if you are going to live lives free of suffering, lives full of inner peace and joy, a life where we can transform ourselves from survivors to thrivers. And when it comes to domestic violence, unfortunately, it is an issue that has become so prevalent that there is not a single one of us that is untouched by it. And hence, it is absolutely essential for us to raise our awareness around issues of domestic violence so that we can protect ourselves and our loved ones from this evil. And it really is an evil. Over the last few episodes, we've talked a little bit about some of the common myths that people believe in, some of the ideas that people have about domestic violence that are incorrect and can get us into a lot of trouble if we believe in those myths. We have talked a little bit about what it can look like. The idea that it's not just about physical violence, physical abuse, but really it is an issue of one person wanting to control another, dominate another for their own purposes. And that is ultimately really how we define abusive behavior and abusive relationships. Abusive relationships are ones where one partner has an agenda to manipulate and to gain control and power over their partner. And they do so by engaging in behaviors that are harmful, that are hurtful, that make their partner feel bad about themselves and feel bad about their loved ones. But it's not just about feeling bad either. There are lots of other strategies and techniques and tactics that an abuser can use to realize their agenda of gaining power and control and to manipulate. For example, by making someone feel that they're completely dependent upon you, that they wouldn't be able to survive without you. For example, if you make someone completely financially dependent upon you. You know, when we think about all the reasons why someone would stay in an abusive relationship, one of the very common reasons that comes up that survivors of domestic violence give for why they've stayed or why they're staying is because they're like, well, we can't leave because how would we survive? I know even of cases where the abused partner, the victim, the survivor, even though they are the ones who are working, They're the ones who are bringing in the money. They're nonetheless not being allowed to control the money. And so they are totally made dependent upon their partner financially. And in a lot of other cases, of course, they're not even being allowed to work. They're not allowed to earn any money. And so for that reason, they become dependent. And then if there are children involved in the case, it's like, so now I'm not only to take care of myself, but, I can't leave my children behind. Where would I go with my children? How would I feed them? Where would I keep them? And so these concerns keep the victim feeling trapped. So until they can see options that would allow them to become independent in a realistic way, if they leave their partner, they're not able to see leaving as a realistic option. Now, economic dependence is just one form of dependence. What about emotional dependence? In many abusive relationships, the abuser will make their victim feel as if they are not lovable, that no one could love them, no one could care about them, no one would want to be with them except for the abuser himself or herself. And so if you leave me, no one else will want you. You will never have someone else to love you again. You are doomed to be alone. And there are people who have severely diminished self-esteem. Their sense of self-esteem, self-respect, self-confidence is so damaged, so weak, or so weakened over time. They didn't necessarily start out this way, but over the course of the abusive relationship, they may have been subjected to so much abuse, so much abusive mental, emotional, abusive tactics and strategies that it really breaks down their self-esteem, self-confidence, and so on and so forth, until they actually begin to believe in these ideas that, I am not lovable. I cannot make it on my own. I cannot survive on my own. I would not have anyone else to love me if I left this person. And a lot of times, these kinds of tactics, when you would think, like, if you're a healthy person in a healthy relationship, or not yet, or have not as yet ever experienced abusive relationships, you may think this is completely ridiculous. How is this possible? How could this happen? It would never happen to me. I would never fall for such a thing. But don't fool yourself. Don't fool yourself. Remember the how to boil a frog analogy that I gave in one of the previous episodes. That if you put a healthy frog into a pot of boiling water, the frog will jump right out. But if you put the frog into a pot of cold water and then slowly heat the water up to the point where it's boiling, the frog does not jump out. It stays in that pot of water, because it does not realize, it does not recognize the danger it is in, because it grows hot so slowly. The danger surrounds it and traps it so slowly that by the time the frog recognizes or realizes that it's in any kind of trouble, it's too late. It's already burning, it's already boiling. And generally, that's exactly the kind of thing that's happening in the context of abusive relationships. That they start out in a way that, you think everything's great, everything's fine, you're feeling really happy. And sometimes, you may experience some red flags, some warning signs that, give you some discomfort, some sense of, there's not everything's perfect. But unfortunately, most people will ignore their intuition around these kinds of things and keep moving forward with the relationship. And it's only over time, you see, that as the abuse begins to become more frequent, becomes more intensified, that you're into a full-on abusive relationship and feeling miserable and in a lot of trouble, not knowing how to get yourself out of it before you even realize what's happened. It's like you're like right in the thick of it before you realize you're in real trouble. So it really can happen to any of us. No one is so immune. It really there's a lot of research that shows that our environment is much more powerful than our will. So if you put someone in an environment that is designed to break down someone's sense of self-confidence, self-esteem, make them feel bad about themselves, make them feel dependent, and all those kinds of things, then that is pretty much what will happen. Environment is king. It really is. Now, it's not that there is absolutely no hope. See, this is part of the brilliance and the resiliency of the human spirit, that even in the worst circumstances, even in the worst environments, we can still find ways to keep alive our sense of hope, optimism, faith, trust, and bounce back from even the worst kinds of trauma. But the environment makes a huge difference. Okay? Think about it, for example, in the context of what happened during the Holocaust, when when the Jews were literally, captured and imprisoned in the camps. And those camps are obviously, they were environments that were extremely harsh, extremely destructive. The concentration camps. And the vast majority of the people who were forced into those concentration camps did not survive. And even those who survived physically, like they came out of those concentration camps, mentally and emotionally, they were traumatized, they were very much broken down, and they continued to deal with the impacts of that trauma for many, many years, if not the rest of their lives. Similar kind of thing going on in prisons, right? Where people are put into prison and they're subjected to an environment in a context that has all kinds of negative impacts on their emotions, on their psychology, changes their behavior, changes their character. And to some extent, it's like you have to change your behavior, you have to change your character in order to adapt so you can survive in this very different environment, in this very different context. You may have to become more aggressive, for example, in order to survive in an environment where, like in the prisons, where if you're perceived as weak, you become a target for everyone to abuse and take advantage of. And so you may need to change your behavior and become more aggressive in order to survive in that environment. And then what happens once you get out of that environment? If you're released from prison, can you just immediately, quickly switch off that aggression? You've been changed forever. You may be able to, sort of transition back and sort of readjust yourself, but it won't be easy. It will take time, and you'll never be the same again. You will never be what you were before you had that experience of being imprisoned and so forth. It will have changed you in significant ways. Now, the beauty of the human spirit and the resiliency of the human spirit allows that even if we have been through the worst kinds of traumas, we can still heal from them. I hate that analogy that compares. I don't know. I sometimes really get confused between, because I'm multilingual. So in different languages there are different sayings, and then of course also I have a multicultural background. So I oftentimes get a little confused about where I've learned a certain idea or concept from. But in any case, I have grown up hearing again and again and again this analogy of we are like glass, our hearts are like glass, that once a piece of glass breaks, it can never be put together again. And they say, our hearts are like glass. Once you break someone's heart, once your heart breaks, it can never be put together again. And I absolutely hate that analogy because it's wrong. It's totally false, I can assure you. It may not be easy to heal your heart from a harsh trauma, but it is possible. We are not glass. We can heal and we can become whole again. I've become whole again. I went through a deep trauma in my life when I experienced child sexual abuse. And it affected me at so many levels, so many ways, and I suffered immensely as a result of it for years and years and years. But I've been able to heal and become whole again. I'm not the same as I was before I experienced that trauma, not by a long shot. And there are still ways in which it continues to impact me. But that's okay. That's part of the beauty of the human spirit. Is that, we can have all those memories, have all those experiences, but their meaning can be transformed. The way that we remember them and what those memories mean to us can become so transformed that instead of them hurting or being a cause of hurt, they become a cause of learning and growth, and a cause for us to become stronger than ever, than we were even before we experienced those traumas in our life. So I've learned and I've grown as a result of the trauma I've experienced. And I've become a better, stronger person as a result of that learning and that growth. And I'm whole and I'm happy and I'm at peace. And I'm not some kind of unique exception. When I was giving you the example of the concentration camps and what the Jewish people suffered in the concentration camps. And even in that context, I can share with you stories of people who were subjected to that horror, to that trauma, and they were able to not only survive that trauma in terms of coming out of it physically alive, but they were able to transform into thrivers and thrive in their life in the aftermath of that trauma. Because that is part of what the human spirit is capable of. The same thing is true of those who have experienced domestic violence or other kinds of abuse or trauma in their lives. But right now, let me just speak more specifically to those who have survived domestic violence or who may be victimized by it right now. That it is possible for you to survive it, to escape it, to survive it, and then to heal from it, and to transform from a victim to a survivor to a thriver. You just need help, perhaps. You maybe need a little bit more support than you have right now. Maybe you need to find a reason, a greater, stronger reason, a purpose to give you the motivation, the courage to do what is needed to help you get out of there, or if you are out of there, to rebuild your life in the most positive ways. But it's within you. You have that capacity, that possibility is as open to you as it has been to so many other survivors, other people who were once victims of domestic violence, and then they became survivors of domestic violence and are now thriving over that violence. So please do not continue to suffer on your own. And if it's not you, if it's someone that you love, encourage them to not struggle with it on their own anymore. Reach out for help and support. And you know that I'm one person you can reach out to. Just go to my website at www.academyofthriving.com. Click on the Contact Us page and you'll see how you can connect with me. Now, I do want to make a disclaimer here that I'm no longer involved in direct intervention work when it comes to domestic violence. However, because of my background, my training, I am still able to be a resource and connect you to other appropriate resources depending on what you need. If I cannot help you directly myself, I can certainly point you to other resources where you can get the help and support you need. So if you think it may help you to connect with me, if you feel comfortable and safe in doing so, please do not hesitate to do so. And I just want to wish you lots of peace and joy until we connect again.